Hey guys! So today I'm going to be showing you some of the strategy I've picked up while playing this new collectible card game, Knightfall Rivals. This advice is more for those just starting out, and those who want some basic advice on deck building and in-game strategy. The first thing I want to go over is deck building. For this video, I'm just going to be using the basic cards you start out with, and a couple of the cards I got in my opening box. First off, it's good to have units with a variety of attack types and abilities, as this will offer you more flexibility in responding to the units your opponent plays. Keep in mind, archers do get less useful as you get more powerful cards, and are definitely the weakest attack type, but because we're just starting out, we'll keep them in. Weapons and poisons are very powerful, as they offer you a lot of flexibility and can be utilized effectively when the board is more crowded. I personally have included at least 3 of each of these types in my main deck, and I definitely recommend whatever weapons and poisons you get in your opening chest to include them in your deck. Armor cards, however, at the moment are pretty weak and are generally not worth including in your deck. So let's play our first game. I would say King Philip is the stronger of the 2 starting characters you can use. I would say his ability to block your opponent's first poison card is definitely stronger than Queen Joan's ability to redraw your whole hand at the start of the game. So I recommend starting with King Philip as your first character.
May heaven...
So I'll be going up against the Pope, whose ability prevents you from mulliganing any cards. It's actually pretty great to go first against the Pope because this gives you the opportunity to mulligan away one of your cards, which I'm going to do here. Now this is a pretty weak hand, especially having drawn both my archers. I'm going to choose to mulligan away the heavy infantry, as even though it does have the flail ability, its stats are just too poor. I actually like being the second player to actually play a card, because this gives you a chance to respond to what your opponent plays, and you can usually steal it away from them. I generally like to save my more powerful cards for later in the game if possible, so in this case I'm going to use what I feel is my weakest card to capture the opponent's card, the Peasant Archer. Archers are inherently weaker than other attack units just because they're inherently limited in where they can attack. So my opponent burned his poison, which is actually a pretty good early game move against King Philip because it allows you to use other poison cards later on. So to respond to that, I'm going to use my other archer to block the middle square to prevent my opponent from capturing both of my cards. So he burns his very powerful poison to kill my middle archer, which probably wasn't the best use of that poison. I personally would have saved a poison that powerful for later on when he could have gotten more value off of it. And he used his other poison card to kill my other unit, which is a pretty good way not to play this game actually. I generally like saving my poison cards to allow my units to capture enemy units that they otherwise would not have been able to capture. So here again, in order to capture my opponent's card, I'm going to use one of the weaker cards I have in hand, which is the Vicious Guard Dog. I like saving my more powerful cards for situations where you'll actually need to use their power. So he uses a Sarsian Slave to recapture his archer. So here I feel his Sarsian Slave is a bigger threat than his Peasant Archer, so I'm going to choose to capture that. So he's going to use his weapon to allow his archer to capture my archer, and to be honest, they aren't really much of a threat, because as you can see, they're only lined up to capture each other. I really don't have to pay too much attention to them when I'm positioning my units because they really aren't much of a threat to me. I will still capture it though, because there really aren't many other plays available.
Who goes there?
And he recaptures his archer, so I'm going to focus now on capturing his middle unit. And now I've put him in a pretty awkward position, because his archers can't capture anything, and he used a lot of his poison cards at the beginning of the game, so it's going to be difficult for him to remove any of my cards. He plays another archer, and we win 5-4. Notice how I have a weapon and a poison card still in hand to bail us out if we did manage to capture 2 of our cards. That's why I like having weapons and poison cards in the late game.
Victory!
And let's play one more game. I would say one of the main things to think about when playing this game is to always think ahead as to how your opponent's going to respond to your play, and then plan your play accordingly.
May heaven welcome you.
Looks like I'll be facing the Pope again. And it looks like we're going second this time, so we won't really have the ability to essentially mulligan one of our cards away for free, as on our first turn this time we want to respond to what the opponent plays. So he plays his Sarcian Archer, and to respond to that, I'm going to use, again, one of my weaker cards, the Peasant Archer, to capture it. So he plays Plague Doctor, which is a pretty powerful card. And now the only play I have to actually capture one of his cards is to use my Halberdier to capture his Sarcian Archer. So he uses his Falconer to capture my Peasant Archer. It looks like one of the only plays I have is to capture his Falconer, and I'm going to use my Pikeman to do that. I could have also used the Vicious Guard Dog in this situation to capture the Falconer, but the Vicious Guard Dog is slightly more powerful than the Pikeman. It has one more stat, and it has the flexibility of the swap ability. So I'm going to use the Pikeman in this situation and hopefully save the Vicious Guard Dog for later on when I can use its extra stat or its swap ability. So he burns his poison card on that turn, and I actually see a really good opportunity here to capture his Plague Doctor, which will be a really great steal for us. I'm going to use the Plague Supplies to bring its bottom stat down to 1, and then I'm going to use the Heavy Infantry with its Flail ability to capture the Plague Doctor. He burns his weapon to recapture his Sarcian Archer, and as you can see, the archers just really aren't in great positions, as they're only set up to capture each other, and they're really not in a place right now to have a big effect on the board. So I'm just going to play it defensively here. And that right there actually was a bit of a misplay on my end. I should have used the Templar Abbot instead of the Scullery Maid in this position. The positioning of their stats would defend better against a Lance card. So he actually does play a Lance card and makes me pay for the misplay. But we're still in a pretty good position right here. And this is why I like having poison cards later in the game, because if we didn't have this poison card, we'd lose right now. But because we can destroy his lance unit, we're still in a pretty good position to win. I'm going to use my tournament champion to recapture the Falconer. His Scullery Maid is also now in a very poor position to capture anything, and his archers really can't capture anything either. And we win 6-3. Not a bad game.
Victory!
And that's it for this video. Hope you guys learned something, and I look forward to making more content for this game in the future.